Chapter 9. Scene 1. Homemaking class. The 3 years that remained before Delilah's senior year meant time could fade into hurtful memories. The senior year held so much for all the girls. They were, or would soon be, 18 and, by evangelical Christian standards, women. The church's, and thus, the school's major task would now be to prepare the young women earnestly to be a successful Christian woman, wife, and mother. There was much to do, and little time in which to do it. A concerted effort would be undertaken. Thus, the first semester of the senior year, the young women had three-hour classes each day, an extreme departure from the 5-period, 1-hour classes of the previous 3 years. Delilah's first 3-hour class was the Christian woman, a general class briefly covering several topics, and taught by Mrs. Kleinhurst. Mrs. Kleinhurst was about 40 and the quintessential Christian woman. Earth Mother figure, plump, not fat, average height, growing waistline, and brown hair surreptitiously lightened to resemble a weak blonde. She wore sensible shoes, flats. Her husband was on the short side, and it was important not to rise above him. Her dress was plain blue with a modest neckline, but not high-collared. A watch was pinned above her left breast, as did nurses of 20th century England. She pronounced words clearly, and at a pace that could be clearly followed. The first few days were difficult for all her students. They were distracted from her words by a physical anomaly. It wasn't serious, and it wasn't extremely unusual, but there was a half-inch above her left eye, a pinkish quarter-inch mole. After a week for most, and 3 weeks for a few, the mole seemed to vanish. Of course, students joked about it. It was brain leakage, an additional appendage growing, a plug that prevented her from deflating, and inevitably, although tried, a third eye. She knew them all and withstood them when she overheard them. She was almost never confronted by a student saying something to her face. When she tended to it immediately. She assigned the student a 500-word essay on the benefits of having a quarter-inch mole on the forehead. After that, as far as the students were concerned, the mole had vanished. Fortunately, Delilah had accepted one important rule from her mother. Do not make fun of people's appearance. Not being beautiful, but not quite a homely girl, Delilah found it easy to obey. She had sometimes wondered if that was why Elijah had shunned her. She liked gathering up all her deficiencies and sticking them in a forward memory for quick retrieval. It granted her permission to be abrasive, mean, or brusque if she felt insulted. Naturally, Delilah liked Mrs. Kleinhurst from the start. She also liked the way Mrs. Kleinhurst encouraged all the girls to believe that the church and their parents would arrange a marriage that would be suited for them. They would be happy and have wonderful children. To that end, Mrs. Kleinhurst had placed 2 passages in prominent places in the room. She told students, "If you obey those 2, your chances of a happy marriage will be greatly increased." Upon entering the classroom, the students were greeted with Proverbs 14 verse 1 on the wall opposite the door. "The wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down." When they exited the classroom, they saw Colossians 3 verse 18 above the door. "Wives, submit to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord." Delilah now believed she, the plainest of the Colon children, would indeed find a mate and marry. So, she knew she would revel in her senior classes as they were geared for marriage. She looked forward to learning to cook, planning meals, housekeeping, infant and child care, discipline, personal appearance, attracting and keeping a man happy, home finances, maintaining an orderly household, art, especially knitting and sewing, music, piano or organ, Christian literature, entertaining guest Christian wives with card games, especially bridge, were all part of a wife's fulsome task. Most importantly, there was a focus on all aspects of conceiving and having a successful pregnancy. Delilah expected that this year of preparation could lead to her dreams coming true. Her parents would find a perfect match for her. As she studied for the classes, she imagined being introduced to her future husband and of him asking her to marry him. She built tender scenes of her glorious wedding, of her happy marriage with a loving husband. She saw herself in the kitchen creating a splendid dinner, which he relished. She would have a wonderful, well-designed house. It would be spotless. Couples would come to visit, and there would be friendly conversations and laughter. She would belong to church groups and attend meetings where she would be asked to organize functions because she was adept at it. She would be admired. Elijah would be proud of her and visit often with his beautiful wife. He would praise her and her twin boys, Lonnie and Larry. All past animosity would have been buried under a new deep love. As she drifted to sleep, she smiled at the possibilities. She snuggled with her pillow husband, kissing him passionately. The warmth she felt growing in her even seemed to wipe away some of her resentment toward the two perfect sisters. Scene 2. Working like a housewife. Delilah had been academically average in her first 3 years. It was her nature to believe that's all she was. She saw herself as nothing special. She expected not to rise from being average, and while her mother tried to encourage her, Delilah took the encouragement to mean, "So I'm just not good enough." The first senior semester, her grades improved, mostly because of her ancient memory of her brother's hug and challenge, "Make us proud." And thus she walked into class the second semester partially confident, which was more than she had ever experienced, especially given the years she had felt inferior. Delilah and the students took their usual seats. Mrs. Kleinhurst shortly received their attention. With a serious expression and tone, she started with the quotes which were prominently displayed in the room. Proverbs 14 verse 1. "The wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down." Colossians 3 verse 18. "Wives, submit to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord." The passages were a reinforcement of what they had all heard before in church. Keep that in mind. The school is starting something new this semester. You are to be the test group. See it as an honor. If the program is successful, it might be instituted throughout much of the United Christian States of America. The girls glanced back and forth at each other, some excited, some confused, and everyone wondering. She continued, "During the first semester, you learn the duties of an evangelical Christian wife. It is now time to experience them. Technically, this experience is called the Evangelical Christian Wives Program, but I guess you could think of it as an intern program for future wives. You will be under the tutelage of a local wife. You will be learning a wife's duties from her and performing them. You will either be helping with or doing daily tasks such as cooking, housekeeping, childcare, including child discipline. You will learn how to create a proper Christian home atmosphere. Included in the experience will be shadowing the housewife to acquaint you with the church duties and how to comport yourself during things such as charity events, church meetings, and other such gatherings." With nearly a glare, she said, "I know that some of you have a very caustic approach to boys. That is understandable. They are very immature. But you're not a child anymore. You are a woman. Act like it. As an evangelical Christian woman, knowing that a Christian woman's role to support men is vital. After marriage, knowing the wife's place in the family hierarchy is clear. As Colossians 3 verse 18 says, "Wives, submit to your husbands, as is fitting in the Lord." Additionally, parents of eligible men will have access to your evaluations to see if you are ready to be a wife. So do well. Don't anger anyone. Don't annoy anyone. Don't be abrasive. Don't be passive-aggressive. Be better than you usually are, and, for some of you, be much better than you usually are. She scanned the class with a glare to emphasize her point. Mrs. Kleinhurst walked to her desk, picked up a stack of papers, and returned to the front of the class. She held the papers head high, shook them, and said, "These are your assignments. Each of these wonderful ladies has volunteered to be a part of the program. It requires a lot of work for them. Don't abuse them. Always be grateful and kind. Do not argue with them. Appreciate what they are doing for you. They will make your life as a wife and mother easier. Do you understand?" The class either nodded or said, "Yes, ma'am. I'm going to call you up one at a time and give you a document with the name of your mentor. I know that some of you may recognize the name. We try to make sure that there were no conflicts. For obvious reasons, you will not be mentored by people you know too well. We do not want to take a chance that any of you might take advantage of them. So, if the person is more than just a passing acquaintance or a friend, we will have to do some switching." Mrs. Kleinhurst looked up, searching for something additional she had intended to say. 5 seconds later, it fell into her head. "Be back here at 4 o'clock so we can discuss your first day." Mrs. Kleinhurst called each of the girls up, handed her the document, and asked if there was a conflict. There appeared to be none. The chatter rose as the girls shared who had been assigned to be their mentor and where they lived. All were in upscale communities. Delilah had done well, placing in the top 3 of the class, but this was what she was waiting for. She was one of the excited students. For her, a happy life would be as a wife, a mother, and an important member in the church community. For her, it was all just around the corner. She would have a place no one could take away. I will be the best wife and mother, and Elijah will be proud. Bethany and Naomi will be impressed. No, they will be jealous, very jealous. Ursula Bertrand would be Delilah's mentor. Scene 3. Ursula Bertrand. Ursula Bertrand's house was very large. Not the mansion in which Delilah lived, but still immense. Nice house, Delilah muttered, relieved it was a custom home and not a tract house. The house was like most of the houses in the wealthy areas, largely white and 2 stories. There were no classic pillars, an ostentatious touch. A driveway ran along the left side of the house to a 4-car garage in the back. A workshop was attached to the side of the garage. Delilah pulled her blue late-model Buick up to the curb. She suddenly found herself unexpectedly nervous. She was puzzled. She was not intimidated by the house, the wealth, or the husband's position in the church. Why would she be nervous? Her father's house was much larger. He was wealthier. His position in the church was higher. She took a deep breath, released a long exhale, and opened the car door. As she closed the car door, she felt a tingle. She shook it out through her fingers. She walked around the back of the Buick and onto the long sidewalk with a carefully trimmed 2-foot hedge on each side. Before the door opened, she set her mind not to be surprised. She pressed the doorbell button. Religious organ music played, a common ring for the community. From a speaker above her head came a woman's soft voice. Please step away from the door. She took 2 steps back. Further, please. She took another 2 steps. A little more, please. Delilah took another step back. As her foot came down, she felt her heel come down on nothing. She leaned forward to regain her balance. Her nervousness spiked. By the time she heard the doorknob, her anger had nearly matched her nervousness. She wanted to strike out. Why shouldn't she? Had they wanted her to stumble, fall, and embarrass her? Had they just been inconsiderate? She curbed her aggression, replacing it with a forced smile. The door opened onto an elaborate marble entryway, at the end of which there were 2 steps descending into a wide expanse of tiles in diamond patterns. You must be Delilah Colin. I'm Charis Wilford, Mrs. Bertrand's housekeeper. Please come in. Charis led Delilah down the steps, stopped, turned, and said, First, I'm going to show you around the house and tell you where everything you need is. Charis reached into a large pocket in the front of her bright white apron. Here's a notepad and a pen. So I need to take notes? Of course, there is much to do, and it needs to be done with exactness. Charis was right. There's a lot to do, and Delilah was wondering if she would just be learning how to do it, or be helping do it, or be expected to do it all. During the entire tour of the house and the relating of housekeeping tasks, Delilah saw no one who might be Mrs. Bertrand. Why wasn't she present to greet her? That would be the proper thing to do, the polite thing. This was not what she had expected, and that irritated her, giving rise to her anger again. However, she still managed to show a semblance of smile. You're probably wondering where Mrs. Bertrand is. Damn right. Does she know who my father is? Calm down. Delilah, keep your thoughts to yourself. Mrs. Bertrand spends this time of the day, approximately 9 to 3, in what she calls repose. Sometimes it's longer if she likes what she's doing, or it takes longer to feel better. What she does, I don't know. She doesn't want anyone to know. Most of the time she is in the house, or the workshop, or the grounds, or even in the forest behind the wall at the end of the property, but she could be anywhere, doing anything. Like having an affair with the gardener. Delilah thought. Delilah already didn't like Mrs. Bertrand, but Charis seemed pleasant enough. Delilah had to remind herself several times during the note-taking tour to refrain from judging Mrs. Bertrand too harshly. Given Delilah's nature, it took more than a modicum of effort. At the end of the general tour, Charis led Delilah into the kitchen and went into detail about how the kitchen was organized. Everything was stacked, and lined up precisely with the labels facing out. The appliances were spotless. The dishwasher was carefully organized. There was a wide variety of cleaning supplies, and they were cleaned and organized. That same degree of precision was expected throughout the house. Feeling that time was closing in on her time to get back to school, Delilah checked her watch. It was time to leave, but she was apprehensive about interrupting Charisse. However, she finally had to. She waited for a pause in Cherie's instruction and commentary about the importance of precision. Charisse, excuse me, but I have to be back to school by 4 o'clock. I hope that's not going to be every day. Mrs. Bertrand will not like that. What's she going to do? Send me out into the forest? Delilah, stop it. I'm sure it won't. It's just that it's the first day, and Mrs. Kleinhurst wants to make sure we did things right, you know? That we were polite, listened well, and understood. This is new to us and very important. It means our future and getting a husband. I'm sure the men will check the evaluations. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 6. Okay, see you bright and early. Not really. I'm up at 5 in case Mrs. Bertrand needs something. Okay, 5 o'clock, in case she needs something. Geez, my mom is a pussycat. I just hope Mrs. Bertrand doesn't chain me to the furnace in the basement. Delilah, you got to stop thinking that way. But changing a nature built over a lifetime was going to be a great challenge. She had no idea how to do it. She never really had to. She looked at her watch. She was going to be late. Damn. Scene 4. Feedback. Delilah, you're late. Everyone else managed to make it on time. Punctuality is critical. I'm sorry, Mrs. Kleinhurst. It's just, she stopped herself. What happened? Nothing. Really? Yes, Mrs. Kleinhurst. Nothing. The rest of the class had been chattering so much they had not seen Delilah enter. One at a time, Mrs. Kleinhurst asked the girls to stand and share their experience. To Delilah, it seemed that each of the girls had a positive or, at worst, an adequate experience. Since Delilah was the last to return, she went last. As she stood, she reflected on the experiences she had just heard. To her, her experience was typical of her life. She gathered her feelings about the experience, took a deep breath, lit the fuse, but extinguished the explosion. There would be no flying shrapnel. It was fine. A little more detail, please. I learned a lot about organization. That's why I was late. I was engrossed. And how was your meeting with Mrs. Bertrand? You mean Mrs. Precision. If you need to contact me when I'm there, I'll be in the cellar waiting to be summoned. She's a very interesting lady. She does a lot all day. I look forward to learning more from her. Excellent. The girls were sharing the stories as they left class. Fearing what she might say, Delilah was silent. So, what? Sorry, I'm late. I'm about to get home. She hurried away, leaving her friends stunned. Scene 5. Bertrand and Charisse. As requested, rather demanded, Delilah arrived at Mrs. Bertrand's home at 5:30 in the morning. It would be a 7-day-a-week internship, but Delilah would go to church with her family on Sundays. She looked at the button on the doorbell. Should she press it? Charisse would be up, but would Mrs. Bertrand and her husband? The house was so large. Would she even hear the bell? Where in the house was the ringer? Was it loud? She couldn't remember. So, for about 15 seconds, she stared at the button. She was spooked. Only her brother had caused her this much consternation. She was intimidated by him, and her longing to please him. Mrs. Bertrand's power came from her control over Delilah's future prospects for a husband, her greatest desire. Having not talked to her, Delilah didn't know how Mrs. Bertrand would react. She thrust her finger against the button before she could change her mind. As she had been required before, she stepped back to the edge of the porch. No more than 10 seconds later, the door opened. You're here early. Shari stepped back and Delilah walked in. They walked into the kitchen. I hope I didn't wake Mrs. Bertrand. Oh no, her room is soundproof. Her room? Separate rooms? I am glad. You are a very polite and considerate young lady. That's good. I try to be. There's no reason not to be. Being polite doesn't cost anything. That's right. There's nothing to lose. Shari's turned to face Delilah. First thing I do is to check the kitchen to see that everything is where it should be. I've already done that. On the refrigerator, you'll find what Mrs. Bertrand wants for breakfast for the next 3 days. Beware, she may change her mind at the last minute. She expects it waiting for her when she sits down. Talk to her only when she talks to you. Do not try to anticipate what she is going to say or want. Above all, relax. She senses stress and will internalize it. And she might, just relax. Be careful to check the immediate area before you say anything about her. She's unpredictable and very quiet. When she's in the house, she likes to check up to see that everything is going well. Be cautious. She could be standing behind you. Maybe I should wrap on some rear-view mirrors. Get some of the glasses that cyclists wear so they can see behind them. Where is she now? I don't know, but I assume she's still in her room. I always have her breakfast ready. When I hear her coming down the stairs, I stand in the kitchen doorway as she's sitting down. Then, I place her breakfast in front of her. Geez, I think I'd rather be chained in the cellar. Over here, we have the call board. Each light represents a room. When she wants you, she will press a button. The light will show you where she is. Now, she may just tell you what she wants over the intercom, or she will just wait for you to come up. Wait for about 5 seconds, and if you don't hear anything, go to her. Why not have her press the button twice if she wants us to come up? That's a good idea. I'll take it up with her. Delilah smiled. A positive contribution. That'll help. Just remember that Mrs. Bertrand is averse to changes. They cause stress for her. Don't make suggestions to her. Just talk to me. Many of them I've previously suggested, but I've learned that it's best to keep ideas to myself. I've learned to read her expressions and her mood. On second thought, let's keep the double buzz to ourselves. Damn, a voice in her head criticized her. That's darn, Delilah. She modified the next exclamation too, even though it was still in her head. What the heck? So, that's the last suggestion I'm making. Just keep your ideas and everything else to yourself, Delilah. Through the rest of the day, while Charisse and Delilah worked often side by side, Charisse talked about more than the work, but each time she heard movement, which could be Mrs. Bertrand, she looked at Delilah, clamped her lips with her fingers, and, as if turning a key, locked them with her hand. Delilah swallowed the next words. Charisse seemed to enjoy her company in the conversation, but both of them tried to stay away from the subject of Mrs. Bertrand. At a little after 4 o'clock, Mrs. Bertrand walked toward Charisse and Delilah, who were scrubbing the baseboards near the stairs. Delilah started to rise. Charisse grabbed her hand and whispered, "Wait." Mrs. Bertrand looked at Delilah and continued down the hall. Was that a glare, a sneer? This was the first time Delilah had ever seen her mentor. Maybe it's just her face. Born with a sneer? Congenital? Charisse, will Mrs. Bertrand ever talk to me? I don't know, but it's not a bad thing if she doesn't. Really? Yes. Let's keep working. As Charisse walked Delilah to the door, she commented, "I really like having you here. You're a good worker and very nice. See you tomorrow." Delilah, surprised, barely had time to smile before the door closed. The comment struck a warm note. It had been unsolicited. "That was nice," she muttered. She arrived at home with a smile and hurried directly to her room so no one could wipe it away. She sat for several minutes, absorbing and reveling in the feeling. She reveled in the satisfaction. Scene 6. The mystery beyond the wall. At the end of the second week, while cleaning the last of the 5 bathrooms, Delilah, working alone, heard a hem. She twisted her head around. It was Mrs. Bertrand. "Delilah, it's Delilah, right?" Delilah lurched up, nearly losing her balance. "Yes, ma'am. That's Mrs. Bertrand." "Yes, ma dash. Mrs. Bertrand. We need to talk. Follow me." As they passed, Charisse grimaced and showed Delilah crossed fingers, both hands. They went downstairs and into the library. Mrs. Bertrand opened the double doors and walked in and headed toward a large, ornate oak desk at the back. Delilah followed. At the desk, Mrs. Bertrand turned around, abruptly stopped, and glared. "Shut the door, please." The please was harshly insistent. Delilah stood in front of the desk as Mrs. Bertrand sat in the chair. The desk felt like a wall, a separation for a reason Delilah could not fathom. First of all, mentoring future Christian wives was not my idea. It was my husband's. I feel it is an invasion of my privacy. I do enough work for the church already. I don't need anything more interrupting my free time. If you're wondering, I don't have children. I can't have children. I don't want to have children, so don't talk about children when I am around. If you're thinking about getting another mentor, don't. You will finish the program here. I'm not a housewife. Your instruction on housekeeping will come from Charis. You will come with me to my church meetings. Just pay attention. If you're smart, you will catch on and see the dynamics of competing factions. Politics plays a large role as wives try to promote their husband's position. I know these things. I am the daughter-in-law of the president of the Council of Evangelical Christian Churches. And don't think about going over my head at any time for anything. There's no one over. Just do your job and go home or school or wherever. We will have no conflicts, period. If you can do this, I will give you a sparkling evaluation, and you can get a fine husband and have a bunch of crawling creatures puking on your clothes. That's all. You may go. When Delilah opened the door, Charis was just walking away. Delilah followed her into the kitchen. Slide the door closed. Delilah slid the door. Delilah, I'm really sorry about Mrs. Bertrand. I was hoping we could avoid her, but that would be impossible for an entire semester. She has many hidden agendas. She tends to be harsh to almost everyone, but I've never seen her react that hostile to anyone else. Anyway, how are you feeling? Surprised. Just surprised. Don't complain, Dee. Yeah, that's remarkable. She's not too bad. I mean, she's fine. Charis looked askance at Delilah. The door slid open. Why is the door closed? We're about to start cooking, and I know you don't like the smell of certain foods. With such a quick response, Delilah reasoned that this wasn't the first time. Delilah figured that Mrs. Bertrand suspected Charis and Delilah would be discussing Mrs. Bertrand's just completed talk with Delilah. Mrs. Bertrand's expression said, I don't believe you. But she said, there is nothing on today's menu that should smell. That's right. I just thought a change might be nice. Stick to the schedule, and things like this won't happen. Don't cook those foods today and leave the door open. Yes, Mrs. Bertrand, Charis responded. Mrs. Bertrand glared at Delilah. Delilah panicked. Yes, Mrs. Bertrand. Mrs. Bertrand whirled around and strutted out of the kitchen. Charis waited a few moments, walked to the door, and checked. Mrs. Bertrand was still in hearing range. Charis adapted. Is there anything in particular you want? You know what I like. It's on the list. Don't vary from the list. I thought you knew that. Yes, Mrs. Bertrand. The unique sound of the library's double doors opening and closing released Charis' tension. Mrs. Bertrand enjoyed the image of both doors swinging open and closed. It felt powerful. Charis fixed the expected breakfast. The ingredients were already prepared and in the refrigerator. Because Mrs. Bertrand didn't want to be disturbed by the intercom system when she was in the library, it had been disabled until her husband enabled it. Delilah went to the library, lightly knocked, and waited for a response. None came. She knocked again, a little louder. The rapidly opening door surprised Delilah. She startled. If you're going to knock, knock, Mrs. Bertrand sternly commanded. Delilah silently stepped aside. Mrs. Bertrand walked past her and to the table where her breakfast was waiting. It was delicately arranged, and since there were no complaints about the taste, Charis knew Mrs. Bertrand was satisfied. Mrs. Bertrand made no comment. She never had unless she was dissatisfied. The best of anything only met her bare expectations. After breakfast, Mrs. Bertrand disappeared out the back door. Delilah went to the window to see where she was headed. Don't, Charis shouted. Delilah whirled around. Come here quickly. With a puzzled expression, Delilah went to her. Charis pulled her around the corner. Don't ever watch her when she goes out the back. As far as you're concerned, you never saw her. What she does on the other side of the wall, you don't want to know. You mean in the woods? You don't want to know. I don't want to know. But I do, especially now. Charis and Delilah tended to their duties and talked about a variety of subjects. However, with the exception of saying that Mr. Bertrand was a nice man, they never talked about the Bertrand family. Delilah couldn't stop wondering what happened on the other side of the wall, possibly in the woods. Scene 7. Caught in the act. It was a Tuesday and Charis was obliged to pick up the usual groceries, which couldn't be delivered. Delilah stayed to tend to Mrs. Bertrand's whims. On the previous day, when Delilah had driven home after housekeeping duties, she had noted the dirt road that split the Jenkins woods. Another dirt road intersected it and ran behind a row of houses, of which the Bertrand house was one. She figured the access road would lead to the mystery destination, to which Mrs. Bertrand went when she periodically left through the back door. Today, the noise of the back door alerted Delilah to Mrs. Bertrand's departure. On Mrs. Bertrand's previous journeys, Delilah had used the subterfuge of taking the trash out to the service road to see where she entered the woods from the service road. Then she calculated the course Mrs. Bertrand might take. Delilah hurried to her car and drove to the road that intersected with the service road and parked a short distance from the corner. Delilah figured that there must be a wide path that Mrs. Bertrand took into the woods because she would never tolerate nature brushing up against her and possibly leaving a mark. As she walked down the road, she searched for the trail. 10 yards from the start of the dirt service road that ran behind the houses, she stopped. Where is it? She's got to be in the dense part of the woods. Delilah angled back through the woods towards Mrs. Bertrand's house, looking for a wide path. There were only a few paths, and only one that was wide enough to satisfy Mrs. Bertrand's delicate nature. To avoid being seen, she walked parallel 5 feet alongside among the bushes and trees. As the trail bent to the left, she came to a sudden stop and moved behind a tree. Wearing baggy pants and a loose-fitting shirt, Mrs. Bertrand was pacing in a small area next to a tree. A young man appeared with a roll under his arm and a foot-square, black cloth bag with the top closed tightly with a cord. "Tom, you're late. I had to make sure I wasn't followed. There's a car on the road." "Where?" "On the dirt road between the woods." "Was there anyone in it or in the area?" "I didn't see anyone. Probably a hunter. They can only hunt on the other side of the road, and it's likely a hunting season for something. There always is." "You brought everything, right?" "Of course, and I have a surprise for you." "A new one." Delilah heard Mrs. Bertrand quietly moan. "I can see you're ready. Please don't tease me, Tommy. It's been nearly a week, and the anticipation has been driving me crazy." The man loosened a thick roll and spread it on the ground. Mrs. Bertrand hurriedly removed her pants and shirt. The man touched her breast. Her head tilted back. She took his hand, and he gently lowered her to the blanket. He reached into the bag and appeared to take something out. It was hidden from Delilah's view. Mrs. Bertrand parted her legs. "Is that the new one?" "Yes." "Have you cleaned it?" "Of course." "Hurry." For the 10 minutes, Mrs. Bertrand's moan grew louder. She put her hand over her mouth. It dropped away. "Oh, Tommy. That's it. That's the place. Oh, God, oh, God." She shuddered. She closed her eyes and hummed. "So, how do you like the new device?" "It's the best one yet." "Good. I got to get going. I have to prepare for the vigil tonight. Before you go, caress my breasts. Seems that you like that more and more. I'll include more of it next time." "Good. See you on Sunday. I'm doing the 10 o'clock service. Remember, no eye contact, and burn the blanket and destroy the dildo." "As always." As she dressed, and he gathered up the items and then erased signs they were there, Delilah rushed to her car. She drove rapidly away and made it to the house before anyone had returned. She busily cleaned the kitchen while she replayed what she had seen and heard. So righteous, so demanding, so not a Christian. I'm going to get a great evaluation or else. The back door opened. Delilah scrubbed harder to subdue her laughter. She knew she shouldn't think it was funny, but for this stern, high-collar, straight-laced woman to do what she was doing was oddly humorous. Delilah was not laughing at what Mrs. Bertrand had done, rather, laughing directly at her hypocrisy. Strangely, it made Mrs. Bertrand seem more human, because it was a perversion Delilah thought people of lesser class might do. Mrs. Bertrand walked through the back door and immediately upstairs. The pipes hummed in the kitchen. They did that when the Bertrands' elaborate, multi-shower head shower was on. Mrs. Bertrand always found it easy to wash away the forest primeval. After all, she hadn't been unfaithful. It wasn't intercourse. It wasn't infidelity. No sin had been committed. It was just a sinless desire satisfied. She had a lot of desires. This was just one. When Charisse returned, Delilah desperately wanted to tell her, but she knew it would be unwise. So, she buried it out in the woods along with Mrs. Bertrand's dignity and a danger to her reputation. A bonus. If Mrs. Bertrand became unreasonable, Delilah could exhume her sinless sin to face the light of day. After that revelatory day, when Delilah's snickers rose, she would turn her head, cover her mouth, and cough. For the next 2 weeks, she coughed a lot. Scene 8. working for Mrs. Bertrand. Delilah was in the kitchen helping Charisse clean the baseboards and appliances, even though they were already clean, but they now needed to be sanitized. It was just another strange demand made on Charisse by Mrs. Bertrand. Delilah, you need to come with me. We're going to a meeting. I'll just clean up and be right with you. Just wash your hands. I don't have time to wait. She turned and walked away. Delilah looked at Charisse. I'm a mess. It's better if you just do what she says. She'll leave without you. This will be embarrassing. She doesn't care. Now hurry. Delilah washed her hands and hurried after Mrs. Bertrand. I have a meeting today with a planning committee. It is something you might have to participate if you get a good evaluation and find someone willing to marry you. Not if when I get an excellent evaluation from you, and you'll give me a good evaluation or your secret sin will be out of the woods. As Mrs. Bertrand drove to the meeting, she cautioned Delilah, you're to sit in the back of the room and watch. Pay attention and be quiet. You may take notes if you like. I don't have my notebook. You should have thought of that. I didn't know about the meeting. That's not my fault. You should have checked the calendar. What calendar? The one in Mr. Bertrand's office. But Enough. Just observe and be quiet. The meeting was tedious and unenlightening. It was mostly a venue for the wives to brag about their husbands, their children, and, unashamedly, themselves. With the power of her husband behind her, Mrs. Bertrand led the pack, unchallenged. On the ride back, Mrs. Bertrand tersely asked, Did you learn anything? Yes, I learned quite a bit, Delilah said, mimicking sincerity, a skill she was beginning to fake quite well. Her thoughts about what she had learned about Mrs. Bertrand were different. You treat your servants far worse than other wives of your social class. That was not a surprise. Basically, she was unpleasant to those who were her inferiors because she didn't have to put out the effort to be pleasant. To Delilah, it appeared as if she purposely avoided the effort to be kind. In fact, it seemed like she didn't know what kindness was. During Delilah's stay with Mrs. Bertrand, Delilah did not go to many meetings, and they were all last-minute demands. She hated to leave Charisse while they were working on a project because she was kind and understanding, which made it harder. Scene 9. Extorting Bertrand. The end of the internship was a week away, and Delilah was anxious to see her evaluation. She was cleaning the downstairs bathroom, which had to be done every day and sanitized immediately after someone used it. Come into the office. I must go over your evaluation with you, Mrs. Bertrand commanded. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Mrs. Bertrand. Delilah washed her hands and joined Mrs. Bertrand in the office. Delilah knew that she was to wait for permission to sit. You may sit. Thank you. I'm not sure another year would make you an appropriate wife. You have many faults. If there was a way I could demand that you redo your internship, I would. All I can do is give you an unsatisfactory evaluation. No, that's not going to be my evaluation. What? I said that will not be my evaluation. This is one of the reasons you're getting an unsatisfactory. You have no respect for me. That's true, but you're going to give me an excellent evaluation, a superb evaluation. You will praise me highly. I'm one of the finest young women you've ever met. She rose, saying, You insolent child. Sit down, Delilah brusquely demanded. How dare you talk to me like that? Delilah was enjoying her march to revealing the sinful secret. She stood and stepped around the desk and stood in front of Mrs. Bertrand. She put her finger on Mrs. Bertrand's chest and pressed. She fell back into the chair. Fear then anger filled her eyes. You. Oh, Tommy. That's it. That's the place. Oh, God, oh, God. The fear on Mrs. Bertrand's face deepened. She stiffened. Her hand shook. I could see you enjoy the new device. I think you called it a dildo. I hope he burned the blanket and destroyed the dildo. Mrs. Bertrand stared silently. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to destroy that evaluation and write a new perfect one. If I don't like it, you will write another one, and you will keep writing them until I'm satisfied. Do you understand? Silence. Answer me. Do you understand? Meekly frightened, she answered yes. And by the way, you're going to treat Charisse with respect and gratitude. Do not abuse her in any way. Just back off. Treat her kindly. I will be calling her from time to time, and I better not hear anything but positive responses. I'll leave you to rewrite the evaluation. Come and get me when you're done. I will be in the kitchen helping Charisse. 45 minutes later, Mrs. Bertrand walked into the kitchen. With a tight jaw, she asked, "Delilah, would you please come to the office with me?" Fighting the tight jaw, she added a slight smile. "Certainly." After Mrs. Bertrand closed the doors, she handed Delilah the new evaluation. She fought the words, but managed to push them out. "I hope this meets with your approval. Let's sit over there." Delilah pointed to two comfortable mauve chairs. Snuggled against the wall in a corner, they seemed to have been arranged for a quiet conversation. They sat. "Could you give me a pen and something to write on, please?" After a subdued glare, Mrs. Bertrand rose, went to her desk, and returned with a pen and a tablet. For the next 15 minutes, Delilah edited the evaluation. Mrs. Bertrand's face expressed her anxiety and tension. "With these changes, it will be acceptable." "Okay. Now, there's one more thing." With pursed lips and a tone of restrained annoyance, Mrs. Bertrand asked, "What is it?" "You are to nominate me for Future Housewife of the Year for my school. Then you will work tirelessly to make sure I get the award." Mrs. Bertrand nodded her head. I didn't hear a positive response. "Of course, I will give it my best effort." Remembering Mrs. Bertrand's attack when Delilah responded that she would give her best effort, Delilah responded with the same invective. "I don't want your pathetic best effort. I want results." Okay, I'll make sure. Thank you. I'll wait in the kitchen while you create a revised evaluation. Bring it to me when you're done. And tell Charis she has been doing a wonderful job and you're going to give her a raise. Let's say 10%. No, let's be generous, 20%. Of course. Delilah could almost hear Mrs. Bertrand's teeth grinding and the veins in her neck expanding. Since Delilah's internship had started, she had been a puppet on a string. While she worked with Charis, her hours were dictated by Mrs. Bertrand's whims. Early morning arrivals, late night, and after midnight departures had been the normative schedule since the beginning. While Delilah could now dictate the end of her workday, she stayed to help Charis finish her task, the cleaning of the kitchen until it gleamed. Suddenly, one day with the kitchen still not gleaming, Delilah shouted, "We're done." Charis cringed at the thought that Mrs. Bertrand had heard Delilah. "What are you doing? She'll kill us." Delilah remained silent. "Delilah, quick, go to her and apologize." "No." "Then I'll go." "No, you just stay right where you are." "You foolish girl. She'll give you a bad evaluation." "I doubt it. You know what she's like. She might be a changed woman. She might have had a revelation." "Oh no, here she comes." Mrs. Bertrand stepped into the kitchen, walked around, and stopped next to Charis. "Excellent job, Charis." She turned to leave and was met with Delilah's stern expression. She turned back. "Charis, you've done such exceptional work that you deserve a raise. Would 20% be acceptable?" Charis was stunned into momentary silence. "Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing such great work." Mrs. Bertrand left the room with Delilah close behind. "Mrs. Bertrand." "Yes, Charis should be the best paid housekeeper in the area, and I think a raise every year would be imperative, don't you?" "Yes, I'll make sure. Thank you. She will appreciate knowing you appreciate her." "Of course." Delilah returned to the kitchen. Charis, still with a stunned expression, said, "What has happened to Mrs. Bertrand?" The office door shut hard. Delilah smiled. "I think she has been born again." "What? She's a new woman. Did you have anything to do with it?" "It was an act of God." "Delilah, just accept it. Anyway, I'm going home. I'll see you tomorrow. Next week is your last week, isn't it?" "Yes. I'll miss you. We still have another week before we shed tears." Charis walked Delilah to the door. Delilah put the evaluation on the passenger seat and drove home. When Delilah walked in, her mother, father, and sisters were just sitting down. "Tell Rita I'll be able to eat with the family tonight. I'll be down as soon as I clean up a bit." Scene 10. Revealing plan. With her evaluation in her hand, Delilah danced down the stairs and swung into the dining room with the brightest smile that the family had seen in years. She rushed over to her father, hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, placed the evaluation to the side of him, and went to her seat. "So what's this?" "It's the evaluation of my internship. Read it." The family focused on Mr. Colin, gathering information from his expressions. The most prominent expression was awe. He looked up. "This is wonderful." He put his head down and continued to read. Suddenly, his expression changed. A frown emerged. "Is this true, Delilah?" Taken aback, Delilah responded, "What's wrong? I thought it was very good." "It's great, but did you do your internship with Mrs. Bertrand?" With a burst of surprise, Mrs. Collins said, "Mrs. Bertrand. Ursula Bertrand." Mr. Collins said, "That's who signed it. And she got a good evaluation?" Mrs. Collins asked. "Yes. In fact, a great evaluation." Delilah, still perplexed, asked, "Okay, what's going on here? What's this stuff about Mrs. Bertrand?" "Well, Mrs. Bertrand absolutely hates your mother. And she hates your father too, because many years ago, your father took the position on the Council of the 12 Cities that her husband, Mr. Bertrand, desperately wanted." Bethany and Naomi leaned forward. With eyes wide, they turned their heads side to side, as if they were watching a tennis match. Delilah asked, "But why does Mrs. Bertrand hate Mom?" "Your mother was given the leadership of a committee Mrs. Bertrand coveted." Suddenly, Mrs. Bertrand's antipathy toward her made sense. It did not explain her demands on Charisse, but there was less hostility to Charisse than to Delilah. Delilah had gotten lucky. Plus, her loathing of people who stood in her way had allowed her to extort Mrs. Bertrand. "So, how did she treat you?" "Not well, but I overcame it." "You must have done a hell of a lot to overcome her severe dislike of us." "Yes, I found a way." "How?" Mrs. Collins asked. "With the help of the Lord, I helped her be born again. She became a new woman." "That was really kind of you." Bethany said, "I'm proud of you." "Me too," Naomi added. "Thank you," Delilah said with a rare, kind expression for her sisters. Delilah chatted through dinner, accepting compliments graciously from everyone. She slept well and rose early, still smiling. Scene 11. Award letter. When Delilah came down for breakfast Saturday morning, Bethany was already on her morning hike and run. Naomi was still tucked in bed, stretching her sleep out as much as possible. Mom and Dad had left for the church meetings. Delilah went to her usual place at the dinner table. Rita arrived with Delilah's breakfast, an egg, a slice of toast, and orange juice. She placed a letter on Delilah's fork. "What's this?" "A letter. It arrived just after your mother and father left for their meetings." Delilah stuck her finger into the small opening in the envelope where it was sealed and ripped it open. She felt a slight slice. She looked at it, but it wasn't deep enough to draw blood. She gently moved her finger across the area to confirm. She felt the edge, but it was tiny. She removed the paper and read. The more she read, the more she smiled. When she finished, she looked at the empty chairs. There was no one to tell that she had won the Future Housekeeper's Award. She was the only recipient in the entire school district. She could have run upstairs to Naomi, but she wasn't a real sister, a real family member. She could have tried to get hold of Elijah, but if his response was a ho-hum, it would short-circuit her joy. So, she sat there for a minute, sorting out her disappointment. Then she ate. Rita walked to Delilah and asked, "Are you finished?" "Yes. Is there anything else you would like?" "No." When Rita saw her smile, she warily asked, "So, what was the letter about?" "I won the Future Housekeeper's Award." "That's great. I'm proud of you, but I'm not surprised. I know you'll make a wonderful housewife." "Thank you. It's too bad your family wasn't here when you opened the letter." "Yeah." Delilah's spirit dropped briefly as she looked at the empty chairs again. "I will make the family an extra special meal, and you can make the announcement." "Rita, you're the best ever. Just don't tell them ahead of time. You'll want to see the looks on their faces." "Yeah, that will be great." Scene 12. Special dinner. After breakfast, Delilah climbed the stairs with the award letter folded neatly and returned it to the envelope and carefully placed it in her hand. At the top of the stairs, she removed the letter from the envelope, unfolded it, and read as she walked toward her room. "Ow!" she exclaimed as her slipper caught the leg of a small oval table in the hall. The vase on the table wobbled and careened toward the edge. She reacted quickly and snatched it inches from disaster. She breathed a sigh of relief. As she set it back in the middle, she realized the award letter was crushed between the vase and her hand. "No!" She rushed into her room, went to her desk, and smoothed the letter flat with her hand. As she looked at it, every wrinkle looked like a craggy mountain. "It's ruined. It's absolutely ruined." She ran downstairs, got the very large family Bible, ran back upstairs, glared at the table, and placed the letter between the pages in the middle of the Bible. She set several books on top of it and hoped she had restored its perfection. Her anxiety allowed her to wait 15 minutes. Then she opened the Bible, hoping it had resurrected the page. The worst had been restored, but she was still disappointed. She proceeded to read it over and over, savoring each word. She had never felt like this before. She had always felt, rightly or wrongly, that she was the disappointment in the family. She didn't have the beauty and likability of her sisters, nor the charisma of her brother. Up to this point, her greatest accomplishment was being born into the Colon family. This award was all hers, completely hers. She did not have to share it with anyone. The light would shine on her, and she could already feel its warmth. She read the letter one more time, lay back on the bed, and looked at the ceiling, imagining the new life she would have in a few years. She drifted unawares into a meditative state. For the first time in a long time, the weight had been lifted. She relaxed. Scene 13, Award Ceremony. The Colon's car pulled away from the house. The entire family, minus Elijah, sat in the back of the limousine, mother and father facing the three girls. They were wearing their Sunday best. "So, are you excited or nervous?" Bethany asked. Everyone was interested in the answer. "I'm not sure. Maybe both. I don't know exactly what I'm feeling." "How does your stomach feel?" "That's usually an accurate sign," her mother said. "A little queasy. That's normal." "I feel that a lot," her father said, trying to take the stress down and reassure her that it was normal. "You do? Really?" "Yes. In fact, I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way." "Your father's right. It's very common. People fear that more than anything." Bethany and Naomi listened intently, then looked at each other wide-eyed. Naomi whispered to Bethany, "Is that going to happen to us?" Bethany replied, "I'm never getting up in front of a group of strangers to say anything." "Yeah, I don't know how singers do it." "What are you two whispering about?" their father asked. Bethany gulped and responded, "We don't ever want to get up in front of a group of strangers and speak or sing." "But you do sing," their mother said. Naomi replied, "But that's in the choir." "Yeah," Bethany added. A streak of fear crossed Delilah's face. "I don't have to talk, do I?" "Did they say you would?" her mother asked. "No, I thought I was just going to walk up, get the award, and go back to my seat." "You're probably right, but if you do have to say something, just thank them, thank the school, the Lord, the church, and your family," her mother advised. "And say, if you need an award-winning wife, I'll be available soon," her father added. Naomi and Bethany giggled. Delilah cringed and yelled, "No." "Okay, it was just a suggestion to give the crowd a laugh." Silence swept through the back of the limousine. It remained until they walked through the assembly room doors where they were handed a program, asked if anyone was receiving an award, and since Delilah was, they were escorted to the area reserved for the award recipients and their families. With the thought of speaking indelibly implanted, Delilah was already trembling slightly as they took their seats. Delilah sat between her mother and father. Each took hold of a hand and squeezed. Delilah squeezed back. The award assembly covered the girls' school, the boys' school, and the churches, all of which were under the governance of the council. The 15 minutes before the beginning of the ceremony were a strain on Delilah. Bethany and Naomi were well into giggles and happiness for their sister. They leaned forward, smiled, and waved to Delilah. Delilah could only raise a reserved smile. A tall, thin man wearing a dark suit entered from the left and strolled to the lectern. Black frame certificates were on a table next to the lectern. Mr. Colon turned to Delilah. "That's Dr. Thaddeus Turnman, education director for the entire territory. It's extremely rare for him to come to events like this." Dr. Turnman approached the lectern. The audience quieted. "Let us pray. Lord, show us the light in the darkness. We pray against the darkness of this world. There's so many people and so many places covered in darkness. It can be discouraging. But you are the light of the world, Jesus. Come into this world and light up the darkness. Shine brightly and overcome the power of the darkness with the even greater power of your gospel light. Amen." I'd like to welcome you to the award assembly. These students are being honored for their diligence, kindness, reverence, and love of family, friends, classmates, and most of all, love and obedience to God. I know that all of you are excited to receive your award. So, let's get started. Dr. Turman welcomed the first recipient to the stage, shook his hand, handed him his certificate, and asked him to say a few words. "Oh God, no," Delilah whispered. "It's okay. Just do what we talked about. Listen to what he just said and say something similar." But, Bethany said, "It'll be okay." Naomi added, "Don't be afraid, Delilah." "Shut up. What do you know? All you have to do is sit here." "Delilah, don't talk to your sisters like that. It's unkind," her mother said. "I'm sorry, but they always never mind." "I'm sorry." Naomi said, "Don't worry. We understand." Delilah held back a glare, but gritted her teeth. "It's okay. It's just nerves talking," her father said. Dr. Turnman then welcomed each recipient in a similar manner. Dr. Turnman paused for several seconds. Delilah had not been called. She worried she wasn't getting an award. The embarrassment would be devastating. Dr. Turnman scanned the audience. This year, the education department started a program for future housewives and mothers. The purpose was to prepare young women to assume their roles after marriage, to help them know, according to God's will, where their proper place is in the family structure. I consider this award to be the most important for future wives. This year, the award goes to Delilah Colin. "Come on up here, Delilah." Delilah arose nervously and walked to the stage, not with pride but with fear of speaking haunting her. Dr. Turman held out his hand as she approached. He handed her the certificate, which was a fourth larger than the rest and framed in pink. "Delilah, why don't you say a few words about the program?" For a few seconds, an anxious Delilah locked her eyes on Dr. Turman. "Go ahead, Delilah." As her eyes scanned the crowd, she sensed dizziness creeping in. She grabbed the lectern. It steadied her. "I really enjoyed the program, especially working with my mentor." Her first lie: "I found the time spent to be very productive." Her second lie: "Learning about the responsibilities of a Christian wife to the church was especially helpful." Her third lie: "I would like to thank Sharice Wilford, my mentor's servant, for being so helpful." The truth: there was an expected enthusiastic applause, which surprised her and fostered a broad smile. This was the singularly best day of her life. For a half hour after the ceremony, she received more attention and praise than at any other time in her life. Dr. Turnman spent additional time with her. It was a kind of heaven she wished she could live in forever. She hugged her mother and father, and even hugged her sisters, and she even did it sincerely. Scene 13. Award ceremony. The Colins' car pulled away from the house. The entire family, minus Elijah, sat in the back of the limousine, mother and father facing the three girls. They were wearing their Sunday best. "So, are you excited or nervous?" Bethany asked. Everyone was interested in the answer. "I'm not sure. Maybe both. I don't know exactly what I'm feeling." "What does your stomach feel?" "That's usually an accurate sign," her mother said. "A little queasy. That's normal. I feel that a lot," her father said, trying to take the stress down and reassure her that it was normal. "You do? Really?" "Yes. In fact, I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way." Your father's right. It's very common. People fear that more than anything. Bethany and Naomi listened intently, then looked at each other wide-eyed. Naomi whispered to Bethany, "Is that going to happen to us?" Bethany replied, "I'm never getting up in front of a group of strangers to say anything." "Yeah, I don't know how singers do it." "What are you two whispering about?" their father asked. Bethany gulped and responded, "We don't ever want to get up in front of a group of strangers and speak or sing." "But you do sing," their mother said. Naomi replied, "But that's in the choir." "Yeah," Bethany added. A streak of fear crossed Delilah's face. "I don't have to talk, do I?" "Did they say you would?" her mother asked. "No. I thought I was just going to walk up, get the award, and go back to my seat." "You're probably right, but if you do have to say something, just thank them, thank the school, the Lord, the church, and your family," her mother advised. "And say, if you need an award-winning wife, I'll be available soon," her father added. Naomi and Bethany giggled. Delilah cringed and yelled, "No." "Okay." It was just a suggestion to give the crowd a laugh. Silence swept through the back of the limousine. It remained until they walked through the assembly room doors where they were handed a program. asked if anyone was receiving an award, and since Delilah was, they were escorted to the area reserved for the award recipients and their families. With the thought of speaking indelibly implanted, Delilah was already trembling slightly as they took their seats. Delilah sat between her mother and father. Each took hold of a hand and squeezed. Delilah squeezed back. The award assembly covered the girls' school, the boys' school, and the churches, all of which were under the governance of the council. The 15 minutes before the beginning of the ceremony were a strain on Delilah. Bethany and Naomi were well into giggles and happiness for their sister. They leaned forward, smiled, and waved to Delilah. Delilah could only raise a reserved smile. A tall, thin man wearing a dark suit entered from the left and strolled to the lectern. Black framed certificates were on a table next to the lectern. Mr. Colin turned to Delilah. "That's Dr. Thaddeus Turnman, education director for the entire territory. It's extremely rare for him to come to events like this." Dr. Turnman approached the lectern. The audience quieted. "Let us pray. Lord, show us the light in the darkness. We pray against the darkness of this world. There are so many people and so many places covered in darkness. It can be discouraging, but you are the light of the world, Jesus. Come into this world and light up the darkness. Shine brightly and overcome the power of the darkness with the even greater power of your gospel light. Amen." I'd like to welcome you to the award assembly. These students are being honored for their diligence, kindness, reverence, and love of family, friends, classmates, and most of all, love and obedience to God. I know that all of you are excited to receive your award. So, let's get started. Dr. Turnman welcomed the first recipient to the stage, shook his hand, handed him his certificate, and asked him to say a few words. "Oh God, no," Delilah whispered. "It's okay. Just do what we talked about. Listen to what he just said and say something similar." But, Bethany said, "It'll be okay." Naomi added, "Don't be afraid, Delilah." "Shut up. What do you know? All you have to do is sit here." "Delilah, don't talk to your sisters like that. It's unkind," her mother said. "I'm sorry, but they always never mind." "I'm sorry." Naomi said, "Don't worry. We understand." Delilah held back a glare, but gritted her teeth. "It's okay. It's just nerves talking," her father said. Dr. Turnman then welcomed each recipient in a similar manner. Dr. Turnman paused for several seconds. Delilah had not been called. She worried she wasn't getting an award. The embarrassment would be devastating. Dr. Turnman scanned the audience. This year, the education department started a program for future housewives and mothers. The purpose was to prepare young women to assume their roles after marriage, to help them know, according to God's will, where their proper place is in the family structure. I consider this award to be the most important for future wives. This year, the award goes to Delilah Colin. "Come on up here, Delilah." Delilah arose nervously and walked to the stage, not with pride, but with fear of speaking haunting her. Dr. Turnman held out his hand as she approached. He handed her the certificate, which was a fourth larger than the rest and framed in pink. "Delilah, why don't you say a few words about the program?" For a few seconds, an anxious Delilah locked her eyes on Dr. Turnman. "Go ahead, Delilah." As her eyes scanned the crowd, she sensed dizziness creeping in. She grabbed the lectern. It steadied her. "I really enjoyed the program, especially working with my mentor." Her first lie: "I found the time spent to be very productive." Her second lie: "Learning about the responsibilities of Christian wife to the church was especially helpful." Her third lie: "I would like to thank Sharice Wilford, my mentor servant, for being so helpful." The truth: there was an expected enthusiastic applause, which surprised her and fostered a broad smile. This was the singularly best day of her life. For a half hour after the ceremony, she received more attention and praise than at any other time in her life. Dr. Turnman spent additional time with her. It was a kind of heaven she wished she could live in forever. She hugged her mother and father and even hugged her sisters, and she even did it sincerely.